everyone. I'm very pleased to be here. I guess from a speaker standpoint, rain is a good thing because otherwise you might be out enjoying the beach or something. So there's not that option open. You'll rather come in and perhaps listen to me. A little bit about our program, the Joint Program on Science and Policy of Global Change. It's a kind of a joint, sponsored jointly by industry and also government grants. So we have 25 industrial sponsors and most of the federal agencies, EPA, DOE, NOAA, NASA, NSF, all sponsor programs with research grants. So the whole goal of the program is this integrated assessment story to try and pull the pieces of science and economics together that are the issue of global climate change and give a kind of integrated picture. And actually, the point is really to kind of provide a sound foundation for public policy, kind of contribute to the intelligent public discourse on this topic. And so a chance to kind of talk to some of you from the press is a good one, and generally get out the research. So that's really what our program is about as we move forward. So this is very in keeping with our program. Not only, I know you're training on science, but I recently trained for the media once in a while. So I was doing a little media training event with someone who had been a news anchor on PBS, I believe, and he asked me what I did, and I said, the economics of climate change. He goes, well, what is that? What are economists doing with climate change? So hopefully I'll try and answer that question for you today. I thought what I'd do is, give you a little bit of background, just how do economists come to this issue, and then build to some of the results that people have talked about in terms of the economics of climate change, and then focus a little bit on some of our work in the program to kind of get at a couple of different pieces of this. So, climate economics, what is it? Well, economics is about allocating scarce resources among competing needs. So an economy's resources are its people, its natural resources, and any physical capital, roads and buildings and industry, infrastructure, and savings. And so needs and wants include things like, obviously housing, food, good health, amusement, leisure time, pleasure. So we're trying to kind of think about how we provide the most of that with the resources we have. So that's really what a basic definition of economics. We think that a market system with assignment of property rights can generally lead to the efficient provision of goods and services and producing the greatest satisfaction given the available resources under some specialized conditions. And so the exceptions of those are when we have public goods or externalities. So that's kind of the key notion in economics. And pollution is an externality. The polluters don't fully take into account the damages that pollution is going to cause. So they go on polluting as if it's not hurting anyone. It doesn't come back directly into their pocket. So that's when environmental economists or economists come in and say we need to correct those externalities through some mechanism to kind of enforce, and so from an economic standpoint, we're actually oftentimes looking at trying to kind of get the price signals into the polluters so they understand here's what the damage costs associated with that. And then we hope the market system will then work corrected like that to then take account of those public goods or damages, externalities that are taking place without the regulation. So that's the basic story of why economists get into the climate change issue. A little thing I mentioned the notion of public and private goods. So what are they? It's a little bit different than what you might think. So a bakery, you can imagine a bakery owned privately or by public agency. It could be a school cafeteria or something, I suppose. It produces bread, which in economics is a private good. We don't care if the government is this bakery or the private sector, it's still producing a private good. Whereas public goods are defined by innate properties of a good. Consumption by one person doesn't fully diminish, at least, or diminish the value of the good for others. So obviously, eat a loaf of bread is gone, no one else can use it. But something like knowledge, a mathematical formula, once derived, can be used over and over again. And so it's always, that's the notion of public good. So knowledge is a classic one. Defense is another one. If you defend the country, everyone in the country is defended. Whether you pay for it or not. So public goods of that sort are a problem because you get the benefit of it even if you don't pay. So it's another issue. So the other sort of key concept in economics is efficiency, and there the classic efficiency criterion is that we want the marginal cost of producing something to equal the marginal value of the good. And so for private goods, people observe prices and buy as much as they want and equate the marginal value to the price. So how much do I want? I'm willing to pay up to the price. And producers produce goods up to the point where the cost of the last unit is the production of just that price. So in the market system does that for us. The public good is a little different because it affects all people simultaneously. And so the marginal value of another unit of provision is the sum of differing marginal values of all people affected by its provision. So equal pricing doesn't lead to efficient provision. There's some different types of these goods. Maybe I'll skip through that and but that's kind of the notion we're looking at. So in the climate issue, different people may have different values associated with climate change. Some people are affected more, some people may care more, some less. So there's no single price that, one person maybe wouldn't pay a lot to solve the climate, others may not care that much. But what we want to do is add up all those values to kind of find the efficient level of provision of climate. So that leads in economics to cost-benefit analysis. So where we can't, so here's the case where we can't, the market isn't going to provide an efficient provision, and so it's up to someone to say, well, how do we then determine what is the efficient level? So that's where cost-benefit analysis comes in. We'd like to kind of equate the marginal cost to the marginal benefit as we go forward. And so then we want to, once we kind of figure out what that right level is, we need to find a way to make sure it happens. So if you see discussions of carbon taxes or cap and trade systems, what the level of the carbon tax or the level of allowances that you allocate in the market, we're trying to set so that it's resulting in this marginal cost equal to marginal benefit. So if we knew what the marginal benefit of saving climate was, that would be the tax rate we'd want to set the carbon tax at. If we thought we knew that the right level was X number of tons in the atmosphere, then we want to allocate allowances so that we didn't get more than that number of ton, and then the price will, then the cap and trade system will set a price for it. Obviously we're letting the market do the work here to kind of solve the problem once we set it up, but it only is the right level if we've set the cap and trade and the tax right. So that's kind of the trick about it. The reason we want to use this market system, even though, so the market system in these allowances or tax system, the reason we want to do that is, what we don't then have to do is guess exactly what every company should do. So we let the market system then choose a cost-effective solution given that we've given that allowance. So that's the kind of the basic story on economics. If we, it's oftentimes you compare these market systems to saying, well, everyone will just drive a Prius, or everyone will, every company will produce electricity with natural gas, or everyone will produce electricity with nuclear. Instead of setting a kind of a standard like that, we set the price, and there's a carbon price, so people who are, the utilities that are producing electricity will say, well, if I buy coal, I'm going to have to pay a lot for these allowances to cover all the coal. I'll look at the other choices I have. Maybe I'll do natural gas instead, or maybe I will do nuclear, or I'll look at renewables, or see what is the best solution. So that is the basic economic argument for something like a cap and trade system.